the Lifeboat Live. We have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville. Glad that you're here. Bet you guys forgot what I looked like, huh? Seems like I've been gone for weeks. I was not here for yesterday's show, and the day before we kind of clipped it a little early, so it does feel like I haven't been here in a while. But it is good to be back among family and friends. And today is going to be a different kind of show because right as we were getting ready to go live, some stuff came up that is going to require a bit of a rant. I promise you that I am going to be talking about disorganization versus organization and how that affects sobriety. But and that's something that I'm deep in the mix of trying to work on personally as well. So, but before we get to that, today the Center for Disease Control, right, CDC, made an announcement, and I think it's something that probably needs to be discussed here on the Lifeboat because it is very germane to every single thing that we do and talk about here on a daily basis. The Center for Disease Control, for the first time in years, 6 of them, I believe, changed their guidelines on how doctors are allowed to write prescriptions for opiates. Mark and I were talking about this before we went live, and this is one of those things, if you're in pain and you really need pain management for the rest of your life, then you need pain management for the rest of your life. And we don't judge people that, require being on pain meds for life. And there are people who do, and there are people who control it. That doesn't mean that they don't get addicted, because everybody that takes pain meds for a prolonged period of time becomes addicted to them. What it means is that they keep the purpose of why they're taking that medication in check. They don't take more than they're prescribed for the purpose of feeling good. They take, what is prescribed to just feel not in pain. And for those individuals, it's a pretty sad situation when they're not given enough medication to actually not be in pain, right? So what happened, if you go to a little history, and we back up, we've talked about the fact that we're closing in on 1 million deaths since this crisis started with the opiate epidemic. And when it really started getting bad and people were dropping fast, and at least what looked like a lot of people were dying fast, compared to the numbers of today, it's actually fairly small, but it was the first time since the early 70s that we were seeing people consistently dying on a day-to-day basis from opiate overdoses. That happened in 73 really badly with heroin. And then we didn't see that again until the OxyContin, sort of epidemic that struck and started to really take over the country. The CDC at that time, with the help from our government, and this is one of those unique occasions where everybody's to blame. So it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. We can complain about the Republicans. We can complain about the Democrats and the people that call themselves independents. They ain't done squat either. But there was a knee-jerk reaction to all of the overdose epidemics. And as Mark and I were talking about, instead of just going after doctors that were writing, I mean, there was a doctor in Florida who got prosecuted and thrown in prison, and they figured out that over a 10-year period of time, there literally was not a 3-minute period of time that this man didn't write a prescription. Okay, well, obviously, that's a guy you got to put in prison. And as it turns out, he's doing life because they traced so many overdose deaths to this man. But he had just, he was sitting on a computer and just cranking out one after the other prescriptions and basically doing it around the clock. You could walk in there and just say, well, I got an ingrown toenail. What you need is 400 OxyContin a month. And he would max out every single prescription. Well, there was a knee-jerk reaction, and they put limits on pain management doctors and how much they could write prescriptions. They would say, no matter what the circumstance, this is the limit that you can write prescriptions for, nothing more. And that was actually more than 6 years ago. And then there was a slight amendment for end-of-life treatment or hospice care. And for those people who had an end-of-life diagnosis, they were allowed to up the level that they were giving those people because, I mean, let's face it, when you get to that juncture, then they're not too worried about whether or not you're going to become addicted, or they're not too worried about whether or not you're going to overdose either. But that knee-jerk reaction did something that had unintended consequences, several. One of them was that there were a lot of people that needed pain medication who were all of a sudden told, nope, you're not getting this anymore. I know I've been writing you a prescription for X number of pills. Well, now I've got to scale it back to this. Some of those people went through, very difficult pain, and that's how they endured. Others went to the street and started buying the medication that they needed from illegal sources. That was one of the unintended consequences, right? That happened because of that law. Another unintended consequence was that the people who make money selling drugs realized that since a lot of these people were looking for stuff in pill form, that they would just take street drugs, press it into fake pills, and start selling those on the street. Well, there was a very brief period of time recently when they saw the number of overdose deaths drop. Okay, not significantly, but they saw it drop. And then it started to spike again. The CDC is of the belief that people that actually need pain meds are going to the street buying bootleg pills, getting fentanyl and dying. So they have upped the limit now and are once again allowing doctors to write very large prescriptions. Instead of really evaluating what's going on and maybe putting some forms of safeguards in, just another knee-jerk reaction. And, as Mark and I were talking about, there are people that need this. And there are a lot of people who are going to take their file to a pain specialist. They're going to start getting, Percocet 30s because they've taken the OxyContin that the people on the street like off of the market. It's not that you can't get OxyContin, you just can't shoot it, it's smoke it or snort it. So the manufacturers of pills have Percocet 30s, which is just a nice way of saying an OxyContin 30, because it's a time-released version. It was basically the same thing the 80 was, only in a 30 milligram form, and somehow they think that's okay. So those people are going to be going in, filling up duffel bags like the old days, and they're going to start selling these. I promise you, people, what is going to happen is we're going to see another new class of people that start getting addicted to pills, and they're going to go to the street to buy when they can't get enough. How the powers that be don't see this is truthfully beyond me. And I am not someone who is, completely devoid of compassion. If you need pain medication, I want the doctor to be able to work with you and take care of you. I don't want anybody to be in pain. It's not, and like I said, my war has never been with drugs. My war is with addiction. I don't think that, nobody in the world should be taking pain medication. Mark and I have never said that. That's not how we're built. We say he and I shouldn't be taking pain medication, right? We know that the two of us are built in such a way that we can't do it, right? Um, I believe wholeheartedly that this is going to massively backfire and that this is going to raise the level of deaths. It is not going to lower the level of deaths. And what they're going to do, exactly the way they did it last time, I give it 2 to 3 years, maybe 4 at the outset, and then they're going to go back and do the exact same thing. They're going to cap this, and the cycle is going to happen again. All of the people that they're going to create unbelievable habits for, people whose tolerance is going to be through the roof, are going to get that little notice when they walk in to see their pain management specialist, who's going to say, they did it again. I can't write you a prescription for more than X number of these. And we'll be right back to the same thing. The difference being that the availability of the stuff on the street right now, the reason that they're doing this, make no mistake, they could tell you whatever they want. But the reason that they are doing this is because they found 10 million counterfeit pills this last year. 10 million pills that had absolutely nothing but fentanyl in them and were pressed very, very convincingly to look like prescription medication. That's why they're doing it. They're doing it because for the first time in history, there was more fentanyl that came across the US border this year than there was heroin. Now, that's just what they know about, right? People, they're not taking a guess at how much stuff is coming. They're just basing this on what they busted. But this year, they busted more fentanyl coming across the border than they did heroin. That has never happened before. Why am I bringing this up for a rant? Because I just dig rants. I'm bringing this up because we're getting up to an election season, right? There's going to be the midterm elections that are going to be coming up. So very shortly, you're going to have politicians that are running for office. I don't know whether or not you're the kind of folks that are going to stop by a meeting where you get a chance to ask these people questions. If they're in town, I will, because I think they're fun and I would really love to ask them and put the question to them. What do you plan on doing about the opioid epidemic? Because it's killing more people than the masks and everything else, right, that we are being forced to do. I know that you don't want to hear this because it's on every channel and everything else, but this is really germane to what we talk about here. It really is. This transcends politics, and you're going to have an opportunity to vote. I don't care which side of the aisle you fall on, but tell them you want to know what their plan is, because if not, the boat is going to grow. It's not going to grow the way we want it to. We're going to get a lot of people on here who are going to be really hurting, and there's going to be a lot of people that should have been on here that'll be dead. And that's, I'm not trying to be Captain Killjoy, but that is the truth, right? This is going to cause more deaths. I promise you, people, this is going to cause more deaths. How they don't see that, they're going to create just a new class of people. And they didn't say every doctor now must write prescriptions for the most amount of opiates they can. They're just giving them the opportunity to do so. These doctors are going to be gun shy, right? Now you're going to have patients who are going to doctor shop the hell out of the pain management industry. If you get a doctor that doesn't raise you to exactly where you want it, you're going to say, I'd like to take my file and go see a different doctor. And that's just going to continue. And you know what happens then? Doctors are created who go, oh man, I could just keep cranking out pill mills, people. It's going to turn into pill mills. Guys making $25,000 a day writing prescriptions. That's exactly what was happening the last time. I promise you it's going to happen again. They'll be smarter. There won't be tour buses pulling up in front of the places like there were in the 90s, but it's coming. It's going to get bad. There, that's my rant. And honestly, that wasn't too bad. I kept that kind of under control. Now, before I talk about disorganization, everybody who's been on the lifeboat for any length of time remembers one of our crew members stumbling a couple of times, coming here and being very, very honest about it, coming back and saying, you know what, I drank last night. And you all know the stories because I've talked about him before, but he reached out to me on New Year's Eve, a little bit of a slur to his voice and a decent amount of regret. And from that day, he has been a soldier. He's been an absolute warrior. And I remember a time when He couldn't get past that 26-day mark, but he's crushing it, people. He's past day 40. So if you happen to see your brother Brandon in the comment section, give Brandon a virtual high five, virtual hug, and a pat on the back, because he's doing it, people. He really is. He's proven that it can be done. This was not an easy road, but I remember a time, and I'm not going to lie to anybody here. I remember a time where if I looked out on the deck and I didn't see his name, I went, "Oh, damn." I wonder if he's now these days. I'm not worrying about it much. I'm really not. I have a lot of faith in what Brandon's doing. Very impressed with you, Brandon. And we're proud of you. Everybody on this boat is truthfully proud of you. On the same 40. Yeah, I think once Mark just chimed in and said that once you get by that 30 days, it's really a pretty good threshold. It's a good indicator. Once you start counting in days and weeks, and you start counting in months, right? Because you hit day 31, you're in your second month. And I agree with them. I think that's one of those watershed moments. To get by that one is a pretty good deal. And now he's rapidly approaching that 60-day mark, and that's good stuff. On the same line of congratulations are in order, I got a text the other day from Mr. Alan Ballantyne, and I'm sure none of you are surprised to know that it was a picture of his scale, a couple of feet on it, and Alan has hit his old goal of the 200-pound mark. And that means that he has now lost more than a third of his body weight. And I'm sure you're also not surprised to hear that he has decided to set a new goal. And he's now going to be shooting for the 190-pound mark. But Alan, we're proud of you. You are an inspiration to all of us that are trying to shave a few pounds, and to all of us fighting the good fight in any way, because you're doing so much more than that. I've said many times before that, when you say this man lost a third of his body weight, and that is the least impressive thing that he has had on his to-do list in the last 18 months. So that's good stuff, man. Proud of you, Alan. Really, really proud of you. Now, people, you get up in the morning, make your bed, right? Talked about this once or twice. I know Mark is laughing right now, but it's the start of the day, and it is the start of organization. I thank the good Lord that this camera is focused right on me, because if you could see the office right now, you would say this is a show about organization, because this place looks slightly disorganized. The truth of the matter is, it looks disorganized because I'm in the process of getting organized, and I had a lot of things lying around that I kind of need to catalog and get put into some semblance of order. And it's been making me think for the last couple of days just how important organization is to everything in life. And I'm joking when I start off with make your bed, but again, I'm not. And the reason that I say that I'm joking is because this organization thing is so much bigger than a well-run day planner. I hope you understand what I mean. When I talk about organization in terms of sobriety, if your house is clean, it's a good thing. It really is. If there aren't dishes in your sink, it's probably a pretty good thing. And the reason is, you don't want to continue to live life the exact same way that you did when you were a practicing addict. And most of the people I know, when in the life, have a sink full of dishes, right? They've got floors that haven't been vacuumed in a very long time, and bathrooms look a mess because it doesn't, jive with the lifestyle. It really doesn't. Very few people take the time, unless your drug of choice happens to be methamphetamine. I have met some people addicted to meth that had very, very clean homes, because that was one of the things that they tend to focus on when they get myopic. They clean everything. There was a commercial in the 80s that it said, "I don't eat, I don't sleep, but I got the cleanest house on the street, crystal meth." I don't know if you remember that commercial, but it was, yeah. So, but for the most part, you want to not do the things that you did in your previous life. You want to have a different lifestyle. You want everything that you do to be a proclamation of that was back there. That was page 2, or however you want to call it. For me, that's page 2, Tommy. I'm not going to, last night I was up really, really late trying to get organized. And then this morning I was up really, really early to try to get organized. And before I did, I made my bed. I needed to really get into this office and start getting the hundreds of things that I'm trying to get tucked and cleaned and put away, all taken care of. But if I didn't make that bed, then I'm starting to slide back into a lifestyle that I used to live. And I know you guys have got to be laughing at this point with how often I say it. But Brandon sent me a link to a guy that made a speech at, I want to say it was either West Point or Annapolis, but it was one of our military academies. And the entire speech, that was the title of it. The entire speech was "Make Your Bed," and it's so much more than just keeping a tidy room. It really is a way of getting organized for your day. It's the first thing that you're going to do. And if you're not a make your bed kind of person, just make sure that you have organized your life. And the reason is 2 nights ago, I'm sorry, Mark covered last night. The night before, Mark and I had to jump off the live feed because there was a crew member that needed us. And we would have done it for any crew member that needed us, right? If we don't, then everything we talk about here is just lip service. If we're not ready to, to put the welfare of one crew member before a video or before anything else, then we talk a good game, but we don't live it. We don't follow through with it. So the reason I tell you this is that individual is organized. May not have sounded it that night, but he was, because he knew he was in a bad place. And he knew what the game plan was for when you get into a bad place. Now, the nuts and bolts and the minutia of exactly how it went down is not important. What is important is that he reached out to individuals that he knew were going to try to help him. And when you are trying to fight the good fight and stay sober for the rest of your life, then you have to have an organized plan of attack for how you're going to make that happen, right? So there is the day-to-day stuff, making your bed, doing the same things in a sort of a routine that becomes a habit, right? That's an important thing. But you also have to have organized in your mind what sobriety looks like, what sobriety means, and what it feels like when you start to get out of sorts. Ideally, we'd like to get that phone call maybe a week before we did. You know what I'm talking about? We want that phone call when someone says, "Hey, Mark, you know what? I'm in a bad place. I don't mean I'm getting ready to drink or do drugs, but I'm just not clicking." And Mark and I actually have these conversations with each other pretty often, just not in a good place. And by saying that, by articulating it, we've talked about this so many times on the show. 2 things happen. Number one, you're taking your problem, which you've been keeping in a dark room in the back of your head, and you're bringing it out into the light. And no matter how many times we talk about this, it's never going to be less true. The more you bring the things that are bothering you out into the open, the faster that light tends to kill that infection, right? When you keep it in the dark, it festers and bad things happen. And the second thing it does is it allows somebody in your support family to do what they're supposed to do, which is support you, right? They're going to ask the right questions. Are you okay? Anything I can do to help you? You want to talk about this, right? You don't have to have all the answers. We say this all the time on here. It's a great cliche. But in sobriety, you don't need all the answers. You just need the questions. If you ask somebody the right questions and you give them the opportunity to release whatever it is that's going on in their head, usually they're going to get through that crisis. And I've said this many times on the show. And both Mark and I said this the other night. When things look really awful and you're feeling like the world's just coming to an end for you, man, if it's dark out, right, you just got to get through until the sun comes up. Never make an important decision when it's dark out. Never try to make plans for the rest of your life when it's dark out. Never do anything. And I know it may sound silly, people, but this was truthfully the best piece of advice my father ever gave me. I remember calling him once, just, I mean, at wit's end. And at the time, I was ready to make a real serious life changing decision. Oh hell, I was ready to divorce the person that I was with. Like I was, this was it. I was just gonna walk out and basically be done with it and this and that. And my dad said, and you're walking out on your son too. And I said, well, you just don't know, everything that's going on here. So he said, I don't need to. But if this is your move and this is exactly what you want to do, it'll be there in the morning when the sun comes up. But very oftentimes when that sun comes up, things look differently in the light, right? They really do. And I know for a fact that the individual we were talking to the other night, when the sun came up the next day, it was a different world. It was a completely different world than it was the night before. And that individual is now in a very good place. Life is good. And I don't want to put anyone's business out ever. However, when you bail off a live feed, you get a lot of questions from a lot of people. The number of you who have reached out and said to me, hey, how did that thing work out? Not being nosy, not asking for details. So that's about what we can tell you is it worked out beautifully. It really did. It worked out what I would consider probably the best case scenario, but it's also great the number of you that reached out and said, what, we're proud of you for ending the feed. That's good stuff. It says a lot about the boat. It says a lot about the crew. The fact that without knowing a name, you all know that you care enough for one another that if ever anybody, needs somebody on this boat, then we're all going to be there for that person. I think that's important. But now, there's a bit of a rabbit hole there, squirreled off. But as far as organization goes, so I'm not just talking about the day-to-day, get yourself a really good day planner kind of stuff. I'm talking about organizing your sobriety. One of the cliches that you hear a lot in sobriety is that downtime is a killer, right? Or the idle hands is the devil's workshop. When you got nothing going on, it's astounding to me how many times somebody calls, sends me an email, direct message, whatever the case may be, and says, I'm really thinking about using. Right? People don't call you from work and tell you that. People don't call you from the gym. What are you doing? I'm between sets, thinking of getting high. It's never the way it happens. Think about it. Every time you've ever relapsed, what were you doing? Right? Every time you ever made the decision to end your sobriety, were you right in the middle of doing something? Were you exercising? Were you working out? Were you going for a walk? Were you talking with friends? No. You were sitting around doing absolutely nothing and letting the ants crawl wildly all over your brain. And those ants were telling you things like, what, why bother? We're just going to screw up again. This is pointless. You quit last time, you get high tomorrow and then just quit again, blah, blah, blah. All of those ants crawling all over you. And the reason is because you got dead time. You have time on your hands that you're doing absolutely nothing. So when you look at organization as it relates to sobriety, it means having your day put together, especially in the beginning, organizing your day in such a way that there's not 3 hours of you sitting on the couch doing nothing. That's a killer. That's a killer 2 years into it, and I'm not saying that, a day isn't coming where you can kick back on the couch, watch football or, sit around, but those kind of things where you're somewhat staying distracted, right? Especially if you got a couple of friends over and you're watching a game. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where you sit in a room and you obsess. Right? You sit around and you do nothing, or you watch the news, right? God forbid. You watch the news, you hear all of the bad stuff going on in the world. The ants start kicking, right? And you just sit and stew and stew. Another thing that I will say is have an organized plan for what happens when that happens, right? When you get that feeling of, boy, you know what? Where I'm at right now, I don't like the feeling. I don't like this feeling. I'd like to make it go away. I don't get up. Get out of the building you're in. I don't care what the building is. Truthfully, I don't care if the building is church. If you're sitting there and you get that feeling in your head that, I'm going to get high. I don't feel right. I want to make this stop. I don't care what you're doing or where you are, leave. This is a absolute clinical fact. You get out of the building that you're in, go for a walk, look around, change your scenery. Because when you change the things that you're looking at, your brain starts to take that in. So instead of staring at the same four walls, you walk by, you see a tree, you see a kid walking with his dad or whatever, and all of those things make your mind focus and lock in. And we've talked about this can occupy this spot, right? Another ball could not occupy the same spot without moving the one, right? We talk about this all the time. Having an organized plan for what you do when the peanut butter hits the fan. All of these things come back to being organized in your recovery, having your days planned. People, I promise you, the real change for me was the dead time. I spent so much of the first half of my life with hours in the day to do nothing. And structuring my life that way was always a killer. Even if, I hope when I did my story the other night that I did convey, and maybe I didn't, but during the 3 decades that I was getting high, there were a few attempts at getting sober. There were thousands of attempts. There were a few legitimate attempts where I made it, X number of months, or there was one time where I made it almost a year and a half. And the thing that always kicked me back, right back into the habit and right back to doing what I was doing, downtime, sitting around doing nothing, and that, boredom leading to automatic negative thoughts, leading to, the sort of the glorification of the good old days. When you start saying, yeah, we went to that concert, we were wasted. If you have a smile on your face as you're uttering that, get up, get out of the room, go for a walk, for real. When I tell a story and through the course of that story, it comes up that I was really high when whatever I was doing was, for me, honestly, people, that's like a litmus test. That's like the canary in the coal mine. If I start to talk to you and I'm beginning to talk about anything and there's heroin in that story and I don't go, and I was wasted when I did it, then I'm in trouble. I promise you. It doesn't mean I'm getting high today, but it means I'm in a bad place. If I'm talking to you and I say we were wasted, did like 4 grams before we went in there, that's a bad thing. I mean, for me, that is a bad thing. At that point, I know, right? I know that I'm in a bad place. I'm sliding in the wrong direction. Another thing when it comes to organization is, and we've talked about this a lot, when you get to the end of your day, what do? Right? You kick your clothes off, you brush your teeth, right? You get into bed, you pull the covers up. Well, we've discussed journaling. If you're not a journaler, that's fine. You don't want to write things down, that's cool. But be organized enough to have a period of time every day where you actually sit and go, how did I do today? Right? How was today? Was I moving closer to what my goal is? And for me, my goal is for them to close the box on me without me ever doing dope again. That's my goal. That is my lifetime goal. It's what I want most in life. So at the end of every day, I can say, did I move closer to that? Am I in a solid spot or did I go in the other direction? And my actions through the day, and looking back on them really give me an excellent idea of where I'm at in my sobriety. And that again comes right back to organization. It really does. All of these things, people, come back to being organized in your thought process, being organized in your scheduling, being organized in your planning, all of the different things that come into sobriety. When we take a trip to Disneyland, right? You take a road trip to drive to Disneyland, you will spend more time planning that road trip than you will planning your sobriety. That's reality. Most people will spend more time putting together a yard sale than they will on their sobriety. Planning how you're going to do the rest of your life without dope probably deserves a little bit more time than a yard sale or a vacation. You with me? It's amazing how haphazard most people approach sobriety. You have to have a game plan for this. You really do. You have to have a game plan, right? It's what am I going to do if this happens, if I find myself wanting this crap? I mean, I can tell you right now, if I start sliding like that, I'm calling him. right? Because he's not going to judge me, and people, I can tell you truthfully, since Mark and I have started working together on the show, I've never had a day where I was in danger of getting high, but I had a day I wanted to get high. I wasn't going to do it, but I absolutely wanted to get high. Like it was one of those things that really messed me up. And not only did I talk to Mark about it, but I came and told everybody on the channel. If you've never seen that video, I believe it's called "I Want to Get High," right? I mean, I can't remember the exact title of it, but it was something like that. And I didn't do that for clickbait. I took a great deal of abuse for that video. In fact, I'm still taking abuse for that video. But I wanted to put myself into a situation where it was out in the light. And I also wanted to let people know that everybody, no matter how long you've been sober, no matter how good you're doing, no matter how organized you are and how well planned your sobriety is, you're going to have days you want to get high. If I told you that that's not the case, I'd be lying to you. Everybody is going to go through those. Part of my plan, part of my organization is that I do this, right? This is a huge part of my sobriety. I come on here day in and day out, and I share what's going on in my life. If I'm in a bad place, the people on the boat usually know it, and people, just for the record, I was not in a bad place yesterday. I got a lot of emails from people who were concerned. Mark has days that he spends some time with his family, and I have days where I spend some time with mine. I think we would probably burn out if we did 365 of these a year, right? Although I think we've already done more than that this year. My point is, every once in a while, you need a day off. And there was some things that I needed to do yesterday, oddly enough, all organization, true story. Like what I was doing yesterday was just working really diligently on trying to get organized, with some things that I got going on. But plan your sobriety, people. Be organized. Be organized in your thoughts. Be organized in your game plan, right? And I keep saying it's not about the small stuff. It's not about having a great day planner and doing all that. It is also about having a great day planner and doing all of that. That may be the second half of this, because I really wanted to talk about how organization applies to your sobriety. But make no mistake about it. If your house is a mess, you're in the wrong direction. You really are. If you're not making your bed, you're probably going in the wrong direction. If your kitty litter hasn't been cleaned in a week, you're really in the wrong direction, right? Those are the kind of things that people who get high every day do. So, we talk about a dry drunk. What that is, that's a really old term, but it's the people that manage to stay sober in spite of the fact that they're living the exact same life. They just removed the drugs. Mark, you ever met anybody that worked for any length of time? It doesn't work, people. It really doesn't. When you try to live the same life in every single way, shape, and form, the difference is I'm just not going to get high. I still go to the same places. I still hang out with the same people. My house is a mess. I haven't made my bed in 2 months. In fact, I haven't changed the sheets in a month. You're already on your way, people. It's just a matter of time. So I know that I sound like, dad, or I sound like a football coach or whatever, but make your bed. Get up in the morning and set your tone. And if it's not that, do something every morning that says, this is it. I live my life differently, right? It's a statement. And the statement's not to the world, right? If no one's going to see the bed made, I know I made it. I know that I got up and I know that I did that. I started my day by saying, I'm a new creature, right? And I've been a new creature now for 6.5 years and some change. 25 years from now, I'm still going to be that new creature. May sound silly, right? But I spent 45 years as a screw up. How long have I got to go until I can say, right? I think I'm probably going to be that new creature until I leave this planet. Right? Totally cool with that. I have a game plan, right? I'm organized. Truthfully, I'm organized in my sobriety. I know what's going to happen. If it goes bad, I know who I'm going to call. If that person doesn't answer, I know who I'm going to call. For real. I got a backup plan. I've got all of those things in order. And I'm not bragging, people. I'm telling you that I'm that screwed up. right? I was that bad off as an addict that everything has to be planned out that way. My sobriety has to be like this, right? I do this, this happens, I do this. If something really awful comes up and you sit down and go, boy, I feel like getting high. What the hell am I going to do? Then you're failing straight up. Because when that thing happens, you should go, I know who I'm calling, right? I know exactly what I'm doing. Feels weird. I'm getting out of here, right? Not staying in this building. I feel weird. I'm gone. I'm leaving. And you know something, people, it may feel really odd to say to a group of 5 or 6 people, something in here right now is putting my head in a bad place. I'm just going to leave. That might be a very uncomfortable thing to say. It really is. You know what's worse? Hey, I used, right? I got high last night. Way more uncomfortable to say. I blew my sobriety. You know, I'm back on dope. Those things, really awful to say. Get good at telling people, you know what? I need a little space. I need to get out of here. Something's not right. I don't feel like this is working for me. People, I promise you, there are people who are going to respect you for it. To the end of time, if somebody pulls out vinegar, I'm gone. It came up the other day. You know, I was somewhere where someone was drinking that stuff, if you can believe that. The whatever kind of vinegar that everybody's drinking because it's supposed to be really good for you. But I'll tell you something, people. Yeah. You know what? I don't care how good it is for you. And when I say that it's a trigger, doesn't mean I'm going to get high when I smell it. What I mean is it triggers memories I don't want to have, right? It's memories I don't want to have. Part of my organized game plan is if you pull out a bottle of vinegar, I'm getting out of the room, right? If you start cleaning your house with vinegar, I'm gone. It's just part of the plan. And it really does work, people. If you get your sobriety planned to the minutia, to the smallest of details, I promise you're going to be a happier animal. Don't take my word for it. Give it a try. See what happens. Now, we're going to see if the greatest laid plans of mice and men actually work. And by that, I mean, I am going to kick this over to my bobble-headed partner on the other side of the glass. And with any luck, you shall be seeing him, not just hearing him. Mark, how are you, brother? It works.
Yeah. Sorry, I just now. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I really love what your dad said. That was, man, such a great piece of advice. I mean, I know it sounds so simple, but my gosh, I mean, the simple stuff is really what people remember anyway.
Yep.
It just, it's just wow. You know, when you get things like that happen, and it comes from your dad, you're definitely going to take it serious. Most people will anyway. You know, and given that, wow, man, that's all I can say. That's just a really, really good piece of advice. I can't tell you how many people I know didn't wait till morning and how it all ended up. I mean, we all know where that ends up, right? I mean, even if on the off chance it actually does work out, right? Did you really want to take that chance? I mean, what's the option there? I mean, what is the downfall of waiting? Is there any? And you know, I just don't know what else to say, you know, on that end of it. But it's just such a great piece of advice. I really can't even. When you said that, it really hit me anyway. You know, obviously I've, you know, heard it before, but never really put into the. Shoot, hit the wrong button. Anyway, they can hear me. It's coming back. Sorry, guys. That was a. I should have shut that off before I did that.
And there it is. Look at that.
We're back.
Look at that.
We're back.
There in person.
Yep.
No, you know what? It is. I can say this honestly. I remember after he passed and we were all sitting around talking. I don't think my dad once ever, truthfully, honestly, my entire life, I don't think he ever gave me a bad piece of advice. Right. But I think that's the greatest piece of advice he ever gave me. And I remember my son calling me as an adult in his late 20s, freaking out and had a big decision and this and that. And I remember saying it and thinking, you know, it just keeps It gets passed on down the line. It's how things work. But I said to him, yeah, don't, you know what? You can make this decision in the morning. No
Yeah.
big deal. Tomorrow
Yeah.
morning,
I
things
mean,
will
for
look
real.
different.
That's honestly, I
And
mean,
you told somebody this 2 nights ago. So I know you obviously had heard it before because you said basically the same thing word for word almost.
did I?
You
Yeah.
said, yeah. So
Yeah.
you said to him, man, wait till the sun comes up. Check it out
Oh,
in the morning.
yeah. 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 I know what you're talking about now. Yeah. And exactly. What can it hurt? Honestly. I mean, sometimes you're weighing out your options there, and us as addicts, we need to make sure that we always, 100% of the time, lean towards caution. If there's ever a question if that's going to work or not, well, just assume that it's not going to work, and then really sit down, ask advice from people, whatever it takes, right? So just don't make a knee jerk reaction, much like what we talked about at the beginning of the show, because bad decisions are made when it's made in haste. It just really happens that way. And I would say the same thing. This actually affects us also. When you're fearful of something, you'll make a bad decision. If you're scared of something, you're going to make a bad decision if you try to make a decision in that state of mind. At least big ones. And that's why we try to bring awareness to what we're doing here. Because, a lot of it's just because people don't know. We don't know, right? And by the way, I know that the screen doesn't look the best right now, but that's what I got for tonight. It will be fixed next stream, just so you know.
All good.
We're both on there, but it's I need to fix some banners and put some stuff there. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure that you guys, we are definitely listening to what you guys are talking about, and if you want to make changes here, that's what we're going to do. We're going to try it at least, and if it doesn't work out, then whatever. But for the most part, what you guys suggest is usually pretty good stuff. I mean, it's just stuff that we overlook because we're more
that Vegemite stuff.
Yeah, you can take that Vegemite and just veggie it right on down the street.
Yeah, the rest of it though is usually pretty good advice.
Anything that says other than like a bread, if it has the word yeast in it, I'm not going nowhere near that, man. This ain't happening. Sorry. And that's Marmite too, over in England. I mean, they that's the same. I don't want to say it's the same because that offends a lot of the Aussies. But it definitely it's a unique taste.
Some kind of cousin or something. It's foul anyway you shake it.
Yeah. So, but back to what we were talking about, and I do want to chime in on the whole the CDC. I can't tell you about how long it took my jaw to hit the ground, how fast it did when I was watching the news tonight. That was on NBC News. That was right next to the Ottawa stuff. I'm not even kidding. So if that doesn't bring in perspective that we are under a true crisis with opiates, what does? I mean, this is a real thing, and I know that there's been a lot of discussion, lately, with the federal government doing the the smoking kits. I'm not sure if you've heard about that. I know there was some misinformation. They did correct it. They're not passing out, crack pipes. I mean, that's what was being said. But some of it does look a little a little shady there, but I'm not here to judge that. Of course I got my opinions, but this is not a political channel and we're not going to go down that road. It's just I bring that up only for the purpose to say, hey, our federal government is really into what we're doing right here. They are addressing these kinds of things and they need to address it the correct way. And what bothers me the most is they don't go to the people that it affects the most to ask them their opinion. If you wanted to go break into a bank, right? And I know that's your history or whatever, but are you going to go to, I don't know, a plumber to help you? You're not. You're going to go to the criminal that has done it before, right? So why aren't they coming to the addicts and the doctors? You got both sides of the scale right there. You put them in a room, make a decision, that can be beneficial to both. And let me tell you this, I have experienced both sides of that.
Right.
being able to get way too much and then not being able to get it when I needed it. And that was way before, I wouldn't say way, it was probably at the beginning of my addiction, right? I mean, once I figured out I had issues, there was no way, you was going to have to hit me on the head or I was dying for you to give me any of that stuff again. I mean, that's just, when I had the kidney stone and stuff a couple months back, that's the first thing I told her when I went in there. No opiates.
Yep.
Give me whatever else you want. And if it doesn't work and you're afraid I'm going to like code out here on the table, then maybe. But that has to be the situation. It can't be, hey, don't, those kinds of things. And at first, 6 years ago, when they made these guidelines, that helped build a bad stigma towards all of us. Because what happened was every time you go in there, what are they doing? They're assuming that you're seeking drugs, right? So, and I know I'm ranting on here a little bit, but I mean, I do have a lot of input on this because I was there at the beginning of it, and I'm still here, right? So, I mean, I've seen the whole gamut, and not a whole lot of people really have. The time when I got help was that exact time. I think it was either a year, maybe 2 years later, they came out with their new guidelines. I mean, this really became, a forefront matter, and it does affect people. But I don't want people to also look down on people that have real pain and can't get past that without some sort of help. That's just flat out torture. Okay, I'm sorry, it really is. And everybody's situation is different. And that's why we keep telling everybody, listen, your recovery or your ability to stay sober is individualized. It is most definitely not going to be up to a blanket statement of any sort, and it shouldn't be. And that's when the federal government or whatever steps in and makes these kinds of recommendations to our doctors and really sets rules, right? And are they really doing that for whatever reason to help, or is it just politicizing? And again, I'm not going to go the political route here. It's just I've seen it. I've been into ERs. When I walk in there I had a temperature of 100, I had a radio station temperature, like Tommy likes to say. Right. And what the first, you could tell when they walked in the room, they had already looked at my chart. They knew I was on medicated assisted treatment, and they thought I was going to come in there and start asking for a bunch of opiates. So I was getting treated like I was just a heel of the earth and all those kinds of things that we talk about. Well, I have to tell you, this last experience, it was not like that for me. I think doctors are getting educated on what's going on. It's a slow process. I mean, you're still going to find it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Nothing is the same everywhere. But I really do think that, they should come talk to us and come talk to the doctors, get the people that are involved. And I know that everybody has their own opinions on all that. And it what is the right decision? To be honest with you, I don't know. I have my opinion, and that's where it falls. But, to the organizational part, guys, that is so key. And I know Tommy was making a little bit light of, making his bed and everything. But it's such a great thing. Something so simple, if you can grab a hold of it, really will help you stay sober. And we've talked a bunch about getting hobbies, right? So when you're going to relapse, most likely it's because you're bored. All right, what happens when you're sitting there doing nothing? Your mind is free to reign wherever it wants to follow and go. We know that we cannot absolutely control the thoughts that come in our mind, right? We can't control that. It hits us. It's how we react is the difference. So if you're thinking about a hobby, you really can't be thinking about your addiction. So, but did you find a comment you thought was funny or something? Are you good? Do you want to read a comment?
No.
Okay, I just making sure. I thought maybe you'd seen something there. And hey, Jesse, what's up? But yeah. Oh, I also want to say something about Brandon. Congratulations, man. I know we talked about that earlier. Tommy sent me a text yesterday and wanted me to mention that on the stream, and I didn't. I was using my phone as my camera, so I didn't get.
I also sent it about 2 minutes before you went live.
Yeah,
I think I gave you much lead into that, but
right. And
Yeah, we're pretty proud of you, man. True
I,
story. Good stuff.
I mean, I'm extremely proud of this man. I mean, no doubt. I mean, that is such an achievement, man. And I tickled Tommy's ear a little bit with the 30-day thing, because I do think I'm not sure. What do you think about that, Tommy? You think it's a mental thing for us, or if you?
You know something? I think that because of the fact that everything we do in life, you know, outside of human beings, there's nobody
keeping time, right? Animals, everything else. We really are time focused people, and everything happens in weeks and months. That first, we've talked about it one other time on the show, I think but that you get to that first week and you're like, you know what? I did a week without that stuff. But when you get to the month, you know what I mean? Now, all of a sudden you're not, it's like you stopped counting days. All of a sudden you're into that, 31 days as you're into your second month. Yeah, that becomes a really big deal. And I think probably a decent amount of it is mental, but some of it is actual physical stuff, because we know that they talk about brain chemistry, depending on the drug, is usually 14 to 30 days, before your brain starts to, and again, it's a really long process, but that's when it starts to level out, that the brain chemistry itself starts getting normal and you can start to move. So I think it's a little bit of both, but it's definitely a big mental block. Once you get by that 30 days, and we saw it with him. He, in the beginning, he was really, like, I remember a couple of times where you could tell he was stressing about it. Yeah, he was like day 26 was one of them. I know he was at like 26, and I think the previous one, I know it was past 3 weeks, so it was always right as we were getting to that 30-day mark. But like I said, there's been a few times, especially there was one right about day 30 where he wasn't on the boat. And I was like, oh no,
let me say this too to Brandon directly, if you're listening, bud. This isn't to put any kind of unneeded pressure on you to succeed. Okay. We're just here because we really are very proud of people that do this. And you've been here since the beginning, and it's so great to see people like that are succeeding in what they're trying to do. So please just make sure that you don't think that we're just, I don't want you to have any extra pressure, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely worth celebrating. It's a milestone, and especially because, and he sent me a text that said something pretty close to along these lines anyway, where he said, I'm not sure how he worded it, but it was something to the effect of, I can't believe I was, you remember how stressed I was about trying to get past that 30-day mark. Man, he's going to be, I guarantee you, man, he's going to be hitting the 2-month mark. We're going to have to do something. Have to do some big celebration for him at 2 months.
But I'm sorry about a little ranting on there a little while ago. I don't like to do that here. And I know that Tommy pretty much said everything I said. It's just I think we're both so passionate about it that it's hard to keep quiet.
Something. I think both of us get a pass on this rant. I really do. No, you know why? Because people. The older you get, like my daughter will say to me, "You know what, Dad? You're so smart," and it has nothing to do with smart. What it is when you all get to be as old as we are, I try to explain to her that I'm just watching things happen that have already happened once. This is a cycle. I can pretty much predict what's going to happen because I've already seen them do this once before. That is exactly what we're seeing now. This is just, there's no difference. I mean, it's almost amazing, but they're just repeating this cycle. It's enough to drive you insane. Not once does the CDC, especially when it comes to, I'm not going off on masks and the rest of all of that. I'm just talking about as it pertains to the drug thing. It's always a knee-jerk reaction, and not just in the CDC and the government. In the 80s, we had the crack epidemic, right? And what did they do? They made a law that if you had our president right now, there's a great clip of him standing on the floor of the Senate, holding up a 25-cent piece and saying, a piece of crack this big will get you. And he talks about a mandatory minimum and how long you're going to spend in prison. And they found, the results of putting all of those people in prison for the small amounts of possession and what that did. So they have the knee-jerk reaction and they go in the opposite direction. And, I was in the federal system where they just started kicking people out. If you had a crack thing, you had been convicted of crack, they rolled back all of those sentences and just started kicking people out. They just don't ever seem to think, it's always a reaction. It's never a plan. It's always a, uh-oh. Things are going bad. Let the doctors write as much as they want. Maybe that'll keep people from going to the streets to get dope.
They just need to take your dad's advice and sleep on it
for a couple of weeks, maybe. You know what I mean? Like do something. And you'll notice, people, that these kind of bills always seem to happen within 6 to 9 months of a campaign season, right? All of these midterms are coming up. Yeah. All these midterms are coming up. So the people that have been complaining, about, because there are a lot of people who are in very legitimate positions right now in pain that can't get things. Make no mistake. We know that the boat's been touched by it, right? The
timing of it is really just so because, who came out with the guidelines? The CDC. Who's making all these other things go on around our world I'm not going to talk about here in our country? The CDC, right? I mean, am I wrong with that? So they pick something that's way up there already on people's minds, and they make a change to that, and it's almost like, man, is this really? When did that all get introduced? I want to know. Right. When did they start talking about this?
We had a post on the lifeboat page, where one of the crew members was ranting that, his wife's basically dying and she can't get the pain meds that she needs because of these laws. And I mean, we've been touched by it right here on the boat. We've seen this, and, they really do. It really did create a situation where there are a lot of really law abiding people out there that were finding other ways to get medication. And that's a nightmare. So I understand, like you said, this is really, before we went live, people, we were bouncing this back and forth, as much as this is annoying, we're not ranting about the people that need this stuff. And we're not saying nobody should be getting any opiates. We just wish that it wasn't always, they don't seem very well planned. The accountability
is, I think, is where me and you landed before the show. Because if they would just hold those people accountable that were doing the bad things, instead of doing it to just the whole blanket thing, things would be different. And I 100% agree. My grandpa passed away, and he was almost comatose. Well, he couldn't even talk. He was incoherent, and they were still like trying not to give him opiates. And I'm sitting here talking to my uncle. I'm like, dude, get over there, or I'm going to give that man as much as they legally can. Don't let that man pass away in pain. I mean, what is wrong with you? And that's I'm sorry I got a little heated there. I don't normally do that.
You're right.
You're right. That's the other side of it, is what and that's the only reason why I bring it up, because there are, there's a lot of good legitimate reasons to have these things. But we have to understand that for the majority of people, they were developed for end of life stuff. That's really what they were there for. But why not use it for people that does have chronic pain that can control it? And that's the thing, finding the control point. And they're just all over the board with that. And it's just, Anyway, we're way over an hour. We might want to go ahead and.
Well, sorry. You know what? And Joanna W. said that she's been taking the daily max dose of gabapentin for years now. And then there was a comment shortly thereafter about, the poppy plant. Gabapentin, Joanna W. is that's the generic for the name brand Neurontin. And fortunately, that is a nerve ending pain, right? They give it to dead nerve endings. And it actually started out, that wasn't even, it was original designed purpose was actually an anti-seizure medication, but they found that it gives you sort of a sensory thing. So they use it for nerve pain. They found that the threshold for abuse for that is considerably lower. I wouldn't feel too guilty about taking gabapentin on a daily basis. I really wouldn't, especially, if you need that and it's not physically addicting or habit forming that way. I honestly I don't know. I think that's probably one of the better options for people, especially because if you do have nerve pain, it's not really what opiates are great for. You know what I mean? Opiates, that's not really what they're designed for. For nerve pain, they tend to not have the effect you want. Instead, it'll go to your brain, and that's how a lot of people get addicted taking it that way. So don't beat yourself up for that, Joanna W. is what I was saying. And yeah, if you let either of us get on a rant, we'll run a little long, but we got here a little late. So people, Thanks, everybody. It's been great to be back on the boat. It really has. We will be back here tomorrow night. I'm hoping that by then I shall be a little bit more organized in terms of like this, like day plan organized, that kind of stuff. But missed you guys yesterday. I'm happy to be back. We will be here tomorrow night. You know what we want you to do between now and then, right? I want you to reach out there and try to save somebody. There it is. Hey, Kool-Aid. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and you can actually see the man on the other side of the glass. That's
Mark Wages.
And this is a cat in a basket. Have a good night, everybody. Well done, squirrel. She's a good girl.